Big news this season, we are now on Patreon. If you enjoy what you hear and you want more content, ad-free episodes, or you just want to support the show, please head over to patreon.com/When Life Gives You Lemons, Emma Levy, or find us on the Patreon app. A small subscription fee for the price of just a little coffee makes a huge difference and will help keep me recording. Now on with this week's show. You are listening to When Life Gives You Lemons, the podcast that interviews high-performing individuals who have been through adversity but come back stronger. I'm your host, Emma Levy, a physiotherapist who has helped elite athletes on their way to Olympic success. This podcast was born following my own trauma when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of just 36. Sat in the chemo chair, I set myself the goal of starting a podcast to explore resilience and the power of mindset. So here we are, season 8, and I'm going to ask you all a favour now. If you are listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, please follow the show. By following, rating, and even writing a review, you can really help us grow, and that is what we need. We need a sponsor to help us keep recording, and for that, we need growth. So I would love it if you could please help us out. Now on with this week's show. Today, I'm welcoming Rich Clarke to the podcast. Rich is a radio presenter, producer, and host of new podcast, This Was Always Me. The podcast highlights untold stories from LGBTQIA+ individuals who spent years hiding their true selves. Rich admits that he himself has spent time feeling ashamed of his sexuality. So I'm really looking forward to speaking to Rich today about how he has now accepted and feels pride for his sexuality and the ways which he has found healing. Rich, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for asking me, Emma.
You usually work as a radio presenter, is that correct?
Usually, yes. That's usually what I do, but I've dipped my toe into this podcast world.
How are you finding it?
It's interesting, isn't it? I didn't realise how much work is involved in a podcast, and people listening to this go, no, there isn't. You're just talking, but there's quite a lot, isn't there?
It's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do it as a hobby.
As a hobby. Well, I mean, I sort of had this idea many years ago about... because I wasn't comfortable with my sexuality, and I just thought there must be so many people who have also lived a lot of their lives not happy with who they are. Yeah. And I just don't think those stories get told, and people who aren't in the community necessarily are allies. They have no idea what I've been through, what all of the people have been through. I spoke onto the podcast and times that by hundreds, thousands of people.
Well, I was just telling you off air, wasn't I, that I've been listening to your podcast, and some of the stories are just amazing, incredible stories. But I love how you start your podcast by asking your guests who they are and how they identify. So I wanted to switch that back and ask you that question.
Well, do you know, I'm all right with it now. I have a producer I've worked with for many years on my radio programs, and she's also been through me with my mental health struggles and knew how difficult it was for me to say that I'm gay, knew how difficult it was. So I think the thing that's really interesting about this is that to say, hello, my name is Rich Clarke and I'm gay, and I'm actually really proud of that now. And I'm looking you in the eye, Emma, as I say it. Do you know, I think we recorded all of those 12 episodes. No one looked me in the eye and said it, because we've dealt with so much trauma. To get to the point, I've recorded 12 episodes and I've said it, which is why I'm all right with it now. But I know on the first episode, I didn't look anyone in the eye, because when you're not comfortable with that, it's a very vulnerable thing to show your hand. And yeah, I'm gay, and what of it?
And how old were you then when you realised you were gay and you maybe started to realise you felt a bit different?
Well, I knew I was different. I didn't know that was being gay. I knew from being at school and early 90s.
So we're talking primary school,
secondary school. So I think the first time I felt different was more that I wasn't attracted to girls and my friends were. It wasn't that I thought I was attracted to boys, because I don't think I was. But I remember... being at secondary school, I was probably 13 or 14, and I was with my friends, which I hesitate to say because they all went on to bully me, so they were very loose friends, and they came over and they said, Rachel's giving out free kisses behind the music room. And I honestly didn't get why that was an exciting thing. I just couldn't connect those dots. I now know why, but at 14, I don't want to kiss anyone, certainly not Rachel behind the music room. So I think that was I always remember that story. That's the first time when I thought, yeah, there's something wrong here.
So when did you realise that you were attracted to boys?
Well, that's a really difficult question to answer because I don't think there was a moment. When I went to university, so I was 18, I had been through a lot of bullying at school. We'd left, I'm from Worcester in the Midlands, and we'd left Worcester because my dad had a job in Worthing in Sussex. So I went down to do my A-levels after a horrible time being bullied at school.
What were you bullied for?
Well, I now know because I was gay, but I didn't know that. The lines that would be shouted at me, I now know it's because other boys thought that I was gay.
But you didn't realise that at the time?
I didn't know what being gay was. And no one sat me down and said, Richard, you're probably gay. And that's what this means. In the 90s, who was gay? No one. Well, obviously there were, but on
it
television.
It wasn't on our TV, really,
wasn't
was
on TV.
Yeah.
You know, there weren't role models. And I just thought something was broken, so I got a girlfriend because that's what everyone did. And who's, still my friend. And we were together probably for 2 years. And my friends at university kept saying, when are you going to realise that you're gay? Why are you with a girl? Because I was bisexual.
Okay.
I was bisexual. That's what I thought I was. But even that, I didn't really know what that meant. I was all right. And my mum and dad saw me with a girl. This was all going fine. We were going to probably just have a life together. And then I realised she split up with me. And I realised then that the reason my friends were saying that you're gay is because I was looking at other men. I didn't know that I was and didn't realise. It was just I was finding an attraction to someone who walked past and I was looking at them. I wasn't doing that to girls. So I think that was when, people kept saying, do you think you probably are gay?
Wow, so it was your friends really that were kind of...
Oh, yeah. And even now I've never come out.
Right.
I've never sat down. It's only in this this podcast and my podcast where I've said I am gay. I've never come out. I've been with my partner now, who is a man, shock, for 20 years this year.
So how old were you when you started dating him?
So I was about, what it would have been late 20s.
So did you date other guys in your early 20s?
So the relationship I had before that was with a guy and we were together for 6 years. And that was when I got my first or second job in radio. And I met someone and honestly now in hindsight, I know that we were in love, but I've always been in these long relationships so I don't have to go to gay clubs and I don't have to look around and I don't have to explore that. I don't have to be gay. I just... I've got a partner and my friends knew that we were in love, but beyond that, just my housemate.
And why did you not want to use the term gay?
It's horrible. It's a horrible word. That was, I don't want to be different. Why am I different? Why have I got to say that I'm gay? Well, you don't say that you're straight or you don't say that you're this or you're that. Why have I got to tell you that? And also, am I gay? Because I'm only 22, 23. This could just be a phase. I hope I'm going to grow out of this. And, you have this feeling that at some point this will all be fine. And what is fine? I mean, that's why I hesitated then because it was all fine. But of course, it's all fine. I'm fine now. It's okay. But at the time, my late teens, I was going to bed every night crying because I didn't want to be that person, and that's a really lonely experience.
Yeah. I had another guest on the podcast recently, a female who told me she used to go to sleep every night and wishing so hard she'd wake up the next morning having different feelings about how she felt about girls every night when she was late teens.
Every night. And I mean, I look back now and there's probably a sitcom in the hilarity of how I behaved, who I was friends with, what I used to watch on television, the bands that I liked. Well, 15-year-old boys shouldn't be liking Take That, but I used to pitch that in my sister's magazine. Well, the Prey video did a lot. I should have read the signs on the Prey video. And, you just don't. Because, if all you've seen all your life is this, why, if you're feeling this way, are you going to think that you're that? Because you haven't seen that. There wasn't anyone. Julian Clary. And that's it, I think.
So were you worried about what other people would think?
Totally, yeah. I didn't. I wanted to get married to a woman. I wanted to have kids. I wanted my parents to see that and to be part of that. I wanted a normal life. I didn't want to have to announce this thing that I didn't want.
So when you started dating a guy, you said you didn't come out. How did you deal with that with your friends?
My friends knew. So my friends knew before I did. And I've never denied it. I've just shrugged it off, I guess. I've never said, no, I'm not gay, because I don't care. I was dealing with so much. My friends knew that I was and knew when I was dating and would come out with me and I'm trying to think of better words, but point out guys that I might be interested in. No, I just shrug it off. No, I'll be fine. And then I met someone and we fell in love and we moved in together and we got a cat and we became that couple, and that was all okay. We went round friends' houses together and we did normal coupley things. But when my parents came to stay, he went in the spare room and we made it look like he was in there all of the time.
So when did you tell your parents?
I've never told my parents.
Do they know now?
I've got a podcast about being gay, so yeah, they know now. I think a lot of this was I didn't want my nan to know. And I hope that's not disrespectful, Nan, if ever you're listening to this. And she's in her 90s now, but I just didn't want my nan to know.
Why not?
You just have this awful stereotype in your head that someone in their 90s isn't going to understand. And I'm sure there have been conversations between my mum, my dad, and my relatives and my nan. I'm sure those conversations have happened. I'm sure tears have been shed. I'm sure there's been upset. But it was, I haven't needed to tell anyone because they're all fine and they love me and it's all okay. My nan asks after my partner all of the time. She doesn't care.
So she knows?
Of course she knows.
Okay.
Yeah, she knows. I lived with the same person for 20 years and we've moved house round the country and he's followed me around. So,
and your parents know? You just don't speak about it?
Yeah, they know. My partner doesn't go off to the spare room now when they come and stay. We do speak about it. We talked a lot about my podcast and we do speak about it now. But there's never been a moment where that's changed. It's just a gradual. I think it's more me coming to terms with it.
Yeah.
And realising I ain't going to grow out of it. I'm 46 now. I think this is probably the cards that I've been dealt.
So you kind of had to accept it yourself before you went out publicly with it, with your podcast. Yeah,
and I've accepted it for myself for many years. I've been all right with it. And I think what's really important is context here. So time moves forward. Time 20 years ago even was very different to time now. And yes, sure, I'm comfortable and I'm happy as I am now. Well, the time is different. It's a very different environment I'm living in now. I walk through London here and there are pride flags flying everywhere. And there are prides in most cities around the world where it's legal to be gay. They have pride events. That happens now because time has changed. Even in the early 2000s, when I met my partner, well, we'd go and check into a hotel, both of us, and they would say to me, you've booked a double room and you want to die because You've got to come out to a receptionist. And you just go, yes, that would happen so many times. To the point now, even now, we stayed in a hotel last month. My partner will wait by the door when I'm checking in, or vice versa, so that he's not with me at the reception desk.
You do that even now?
Even now. Because of that. That's scarred.
Wow.
I remember we were on holiday and we stayed in a hotel, and every time we walked past reception, because we'd had that, you go to door. This is a European country, by the way, this isn't somewhere bizarre. They laughed every time, pointed at us.
They actually laughed?
Yeah. Now, they probably weren't. Probably me being paranoid, but I pointed out, he pointed out, we both noticed we were the comic couple who were staying in a double room, and that was probably only 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
Would you say you've experienced a lot of homophobia?
Well, I have, but not, I think homophobia has varying levels. I worked in a radio station for many years, and I experienced homophobia from the people I worked with. They weren't being homophobic, but they were saying things that were homophobic.
Can you tell us what kind of thing?
Your partner, which one's the boy and which one's the girl? Yeah. That was asked to me in front of a whole office of people. Well, I was in a very strong place at that time, so you can imagine the words that came out of my mouth. You're a fun gay, you are, aren't you? Sorry, what? Someone else said to me once, do you know what? You're really gay. No one said that to me since I was 13. And it was said to me probably 4 years ago.
Wow. So how would you deal with that when people said comments like that?
Well, I can put a front on when I'm a presenter. I will put the front on and I will shoot them down. And I'll kindly point out to them that I wouldn't ask you that question about you and your, in your same straight relationship. I wouldn't ask you what you do with your girlfriend or what you do with your boyfriend. Why are you asking me what I do with mine? And I also wouldn't say, you're really straight. I think I don't even know what that means to say that. So why would you say you're really gay? Well, I'm gay. I'm not really gay. I can't be really gay, can you?
What do you think of the word gay now?
I'm all right with it, actually. I think it can be. I think, I still think it's used as a derogatory term. But I think that's left in the school playground now.
Yeah, but I'm always fascinated because I've got kids in primary school and I heard one of them use it as a derogatory term.
Yeah.
And I was like, where has that come from? That's come from parents because they're not hearing that on TV.
No, I don't know where it's come from. I think it's... to be gay, I still think, although in our community we've championed it as something and owned it ourselves, to be gay is still seen as a negative thing by a lot of people. It was for me for quite a long time. I don't see it as a negative thing now. Actually, I think a lot of my success is because of my sexuality. I think, I think because I'm gay and I'm left-handed, I think that's helped my creativity. I really do. But I don't see it as a negative thing. What is the point? I'm not going to change it. And I think that's on the podcast, I've spoken to so many people who were either uncomfortable with being gay or were ashamed of being gay. I was ashamed of being gay. And you get to a point in your life when you realize there is no point to this because I can't do anything about it. I can't change this. So all of these things in my life I can change, and it would be better if I changed them. I can't change this. I didn't wake up this morning and thought, I'm going to be gay today. That's just the way it is. So using it as a derogatory term, we'll leave it to the children, but I hope that grown-ups, as you probably did, correct that is not something that actually could be a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. I actually asked the child, I said, where have you heard that? Why would you use that in a derogatory fashion? But it's a bit like how kids call someone fat.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I'm always very quick to pick up on that. I say, well, why is that a bad thing? Yeah. Why are we using that in a derogatory fashion? That might be a really positive thing.
Yeah. I think we look for easy jibes, and I think, you know, if children are doing that, then they've heard it somewhere. And I do think there's still this underlying thing that to be gay is a bad, negative thing. I can tell you it's not. It's all right, actually.
You talk about how time has changed, and I was listening to Dame Kelly Holmes on your podcast, and the fact that she was talking about as recent as the year 2000, it was illegal to be gay in the military, and that you could even be sent to prison. And they'd put on their military records in red, what was it, discharge with dishonour?
Dishonour, yeah.
I mean, that made me feel so angry. And I just wanted to ask you how that makes you feel as a gay guy.
Embarrassed more than anything. I think the important thing to say about that is that we've always had laws against us. There's always been problems. There's always people who want to bring our community down because they're afraid, they're scared, they don't want us to be spreading the word, because that's exactly how you can catch being gay. This is exactly how it works. So there's always been these struggles. So I think for me personally, if you get bogged down with every single one, there's no way that you'd continue as yourself, because there's so much. Because all of those struggles that we see now, that's why as a 14-year-old I didn't want to be gay, because I didn't see anything positive that came from it. But that struggle, the military ban, which was a struggle, and people were sent home to tell their parents why they'd been discharged from the army, even if they weren't gay. They didn't even have to be gay. They were discharged because someone sent them a letter. I mean, utterly ridiculous. But what's important to note about that is it's really the only law that's affected both men and women. And I say that with the awareness of trans people as well, but this was prior to 2000. The 1967 law about homosexuality and sex, that was really against men. This was the law against men and women in the army. You couldn't be gay. So that's why Kelly Holmes' story is quite remarkable. And a lot of people didn't realise that 2000, 25 years ago, and you could have been sent home. And that what went with that was some people in the army, as Kelly says in that podcast episode, abused their power to abuse people who were gay. And we now know that things happened that should not have happened. But, that also happened in our society in the 70s. There's another episode with a trans lady called Josie, and she talks about how she was a Metropolitan Police officer. And in the 70s, after the law changed in 1967, gay clubs, bars, pubs were allowed to be open, and you could go and you wouldn't necessarily be arrested. But she said what used to happen, and this is common, we know about this history, is that police officers would go to those bars, they would wind up gay people so that they could arrest them for drunken disorder. They hadn't done anything wrong, they just wind them up. And that was because they had to try and get crime figures. And Josie tells me a story which I had never heard before, that not only did they do it to get crime figures, but actually they got overtime because they'd have to take them to court the next morning. And I'd urge you, if you listen to that episode, because this is a trans woman who talks about what it was like to be a Metropolitan Police officer, knowing that you are different and you're going home. And I mean, Josie used to go to, I think it was called the Bowman Society, where you could go into a club and dress as a woman and be a woman and get with other like-minded people and find satisfaction with that. So this butch macho, I've arrested this many people, Metropolitan Police officer in that environment, knowing behind the scenes that you're a trans woman. And in the 70s, you probably didn't know you were a trans woman because that wasn't a thing, but you knew you were different. So I think I've gone off your question slightly, but I just like...
But it's interesting, because I was going to ask you, what are the implications of keeping such a big secret for so many years?
Well, I mean, speaking for... I mean, we started recording the episodes, and we realised quite early on that we needed to get quite a good health notice at the top of the episodes, because there were so many that talked about suicide and self-harm. And I had a breakdown about 2 years ago. And a lot of that was caused by my work, but also having had therapy after the breakdown. I know that was because I wasn't happy with who I was, and to some extent who I still am. And I was still fighting this, I don't want to be gay. I don't want to be that.
You're still fighting that 2 years ago?
I was talking to a friend recently because I always had this line of if I could take a tablet to go straight, I would take the tablet. And they asked me, would I do that now? And actually, I think after doing the podcast, I don't think I would, because I've heard other people who have similar. I'm not on my own. This is a common thing. I mean, it's a very common thing. But yeah, I mean, I bottled it all up, and I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. I was self-harming and drinking too much, and that was snowballing into this. I'm always hesitant to say breakdown because the doctor called it that.
Yeah, it's a funny word, breakdown. What does it mean?
Well, I wouldn't. Is that what a breakdown is? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even know. No. People use it in different contexts, I think.
It was a head. It was an explosion. It was a thing. It was, I can't do this anymore. If that's a breakdown, that's what I had. Yeah. Crying solidly. I had to do my radio program that day.
Wow. How did you manage that?
I mean, I've worked through some quite difficult situations, so I can manage it. I can switch it on. But I now know, having had the therapy afterwards, that the switching it on and putting the face on, which I'm really good at it, that's really dangerous.
Yeah. So had you had any therapy before the breakdown?
No, I hadn't.
And what type of therapy did you have? Was it talking therapy?
Someone asked me, yeah, I think so. I don't know, because I'm one of those people who, if I get diagnosed with something, I don't Google it. I don't know what it is.
Oh, please, you don't, because it's those people that Google it. It's so dangerous.
My friend Googles everything, and she knows more than her doctor. But no, I don't know what sort of therapy it was. I know there was some amazing. I started, as I'm sure everyone does in therapy, going, I don't need this. What is this? And again, my partner said, who has had therapy before, said, you need to do this when you're not on air because it's going to exhaust you. I'm a self-employed radio presenter. I can't take 6 months off just to have therapy. That's ridiculous. So I was doing the therapy, and then going on air like an hour, 2 hours later. Well, I don't recommend that.
Were you just switching it off again?
Yeah, just switching off. But what I was doing, the therapy, and I found this incredibly useful, is I'd have the therapy session. And she was a really lovely therapist. It was so helpful. What I was really disappointed there wasn't a big sort of chaise lounge. I kind of wanted a big chair to lounge, but there wasn't any of that. So we'd have the session, and then I'd go back to my car, and I'd write everything down, and kept a sort of journal of the therapy and what I learned and what I'm going to change, what would be interesting. And I stopped probably about 10 months ago, I think, and I still go to that journal document and look. When I'm feeling like these feelings are creeping back up, yesterday, for example, was a day when I thought, I can't cope with this. I just go through and realise I've got the tools for this. I can.
Yeah. Do you still do any writing at all, like journal writing?
No, I don't call it journaling because people are really good at journaling, and I write post-it notes and write things that I'm thinking of. And I keep them all stuck in my drawer in my desk. And when I'm feeling a bit, I just open them. And there's this kind of mind explosion on them.
I mean, that is a form of journaling.
Well, I guess it is.
You're just getting your thoughts out.
I think I'm not suggesting this is therapy, Emma, but I think what I found really interesting is that I'm not very good at accepting things. So I'm not going to accept that I'm gay. I'm not going to accept that I'm having a breakdown. I'm not going to accept that I'm in therapy. There, see, I instantly dismiss it. I'm not going to accept I'm journaling because everyone writes about journaling. I'm not doing that. I clearly am. I find all those things really difficult because if I accept it, it must be happening. And of course it's happening. I mean, I'd say I've had the last 2 years have been the worst 2 years that I've been through. They've been absolutely horrendous.
And there was no trigger for that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I know what the trigger is.
Okay, so there was a trigger.
Yeah, I know what the trigger is. And
work related.
Yeah. And that was building probably for 10 years.
It's a long time.
I sit in a room and talk to myself every day.
Yeah.
500,000 people are listening. I can't see them. And you know what it's like with this podcast. With this sort of audio, you're talking into this silly little device and you know people are going to hear it. You don't know what they think or whether they're enjoying it, whether they like it. So I was talking, I've always presented massive radio programs. I've been very fortunate with my career. And I'm doing these interviews or conversations or sharing bits about my life. And I don't know if anyone's actually enjoying this. Oh yeah, I get the audience figures every 3 months and they're really good.
Yeah.
But that's a load of old nonsense, isn't it, really? It's just made up. So...
And the feedback from your producers, that never gave you that satisfaction of...
From my producer, who I'm good friends with, but you don't really get that. It's quite a lonely career. I was always told it was a stupid choice, but I'm all right at it. And what was really remarkable is I recently left a radio station, and I told the audience that I was leaving. I had the biggest drive show on commercial radio in the UK outside London, so this was huge, this program, and I'm leaving. And we just got the audience figures, and the audience figures were like over 500,000 listeners, really great. And we'd also got the way radio works is you get audience figures, you get numbers called reach, and you get share of the audience, and you get hours. Now my hours are always okay, but I wanted to get above 1 million hours, that was my goal, and I got it. So I go on air and I say, I've got some great news. Thank you so much for listening. I'm really proud that you're part of this program and you follow it and you're listening for longer, and we've been through a lot together, but I've got some more news that I'm leaving. And I said that, and I announced my podcast as well. Then I started getting messages. And at the last count, I think on Instagram alone, I had over 1,000 messages from people saying how much they loved the program. Not one negative comment. How much they love the program. What are they going to listen to now? Where are you going? Which I still get all the time. Where are you going? Where are you going?
You can't tell us that, can you?
No. Look, I can, but the thing is, I kind of want it to be my own thing.
Yeah, of course.
I want to. I want to do something different, and I am doing something different. I've got a podcast that's so different, and it's talking to you and sharing. But the listeners of my radio program don't know how to break down. They don't know that, I'm going to drop this bombshell here, which you probably didn't know either, Emma, but they don't know that when I turned 40, I went to have my health check when I was 40, and they count your blood platelets. Mine were really high. So I went back to the doctor and said, why? They said, you probably just run a high count. Well, hypochondriac paranoid me, which is why I don't Google anything, thought, oh dear. So I pushed to get this genetic blood test. Turns out I've got this really rare and special form of blood cancer that's called essential thrombocythemia. It's not going to kill me. It's fine.
Right.
That word is so difficult to say.
Yes.
That's the worst word to say than being gay, I can assure you. But it's technically is a blood cancer, and I have to come to terms with that.
Do you need treatment for that? You
can't treat it. No, it's just what happens. So you're just going to fall asleep randomly because you're just tired all the time. I've got too many platelets dashing around my blood. Okay. So yeah, you take a tablet to stop them sticking together so you don't have a heart attack. But you can't. I've had it for 6 years, and tell you the bonus that you get free prescriptions.
Yeah.
Every cloud. So
You're part of the cancer club.
well, hello, welcome. I mean, it's not really a club we want to be a part of.
No, but it's
is
a very supportive club.
Yeah, well, actually, the committee is called ET because no one can say essential thrombocythemia without needing a drink beforehand. And it's a really great community. It's not really a blood cancer in the sense it's not leukemia. It's not, but it is. It's classed by the World Health Organization as a blood cancer. So. Oh, I'm sure you get all your COVID jabs as well. I get all my COVID jabs. I've had so many COVID jabs now. I can. Yeah, I'm immune. I must be immune.
Exactly. Twice a year.
Twice a year. I mean, it's just. But the reason I tell that story is because I got diagnosed and then went on air. Yeah. I just got told I had this. Ring my mum on the train station platform. Mum, I've got this thing. Mum's like, oh. Anyway, she Googles it. Of course she does. She knows everything about it now. And then I go on air.
It's very interesting. So you've grown up kind of hiding something massive about yourself. And then you go into a profession, and you have a career where you basically hide a lot of yourself, don't you? And you've got an alternative self that you're putting out on air.
Yeah, when I started working on the breakfast show, I was presenting with another girl, and she talked about her relationships with men freely because that's what the breakfast show was, wacky bonkers. We've all got a funny story. So I said to the boss, can I talk about my partner? Because mine isn't that outrageous because we're practically married. We've been together for years. Well, yeah, you can talk about your partner. It's probably best you don't say that he's a man.
Wow. When was that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to incriminate if I tell you.
I mean, like years ago or recent?
Not that long ago.
Oh, my goodness.
Not that long ago.
So you really did have to keep it a secret. But I wonder if you went into radio because there was a bit of a shield. You could hide behind a shield. That's all I ever
wanted to do.
Was it?
Yeah, I used to listen to Radio 1 when I was absolutely and probably now in the worst place because school was horrendous. Never violent, never physical. I was never hurt. They're clever, the bullies. They don't bruise you externally, but they do inside.
Yeah.
And horrible. So I used to get home, had no friends. See my sister go off and have loads of fun with all her friends. I never did. But I used to listen to Radio 1 and all the time. And I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, but I used to listen to a man called Mark Goodyear on Radio 1 who did the chart show. And all I wanted to do was to host the chart show. Well, two things. Mark Goodyear's now my friend. Spoke to him yesterday and actually was my agent for many years and has helped my career. And I hosted the chart show.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So, hi, bullies.
Well, exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly.
It's easy to say that now in my 40s, but at 14, I was...
Yeah. That phrase, sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you.
That's it.
It's so untrue.
So untrue. I was called... I remember one, but it's probably a bit brutal for your podcast. But they used to say what my favourite football team. And anyone who's listening to this who's gay will know exactly what your favourite football team is. It's not my favourite football team. I don't like football. It may have come as no surprise. But they used to chant it at me. And it would be like, now, I wish I could go back and just go, can you not think of anything? Yeah. Okay. They used to steal my things. And so when it was lunch break or whatever, I used to have to sit at my peg in the dark room because I didn't want my stuff nicked. So I never went outside at lunchtime. I never did any of those things. Then I decided to join the drama club, and I was really good at working the spotlight. So I did that. But all I wanted to do was be on the radio, to the point that I have meetings at 13, 14, 15 with my career's advisor. What do you want to do? I want to be on Radio 1. Never made it onto Radio 1.
Yet.
I don't think they have them at my age. But they went, no, you should have something. But I'd be a teacher. So I was like, okay. So I went to university to study geography to be a teacher. But then at university, I saw this notice on a board saying, we're setting up a student radio station. And I thought, Richard, you can't be the guy sat by his coat peg anymore. You've got to get out there and shoulders back and front it. And I did. And I ran that student radio station. And I ran it for 2 years. And it's still going.
Oh.
It's now on FM. And I met all these people and I got my first job. And I did that despite those little bleep kids who, I didn't even know where they are. Actually, I know where a couple of them are because I've Facebook stalked them. But
yeah, but that's why, for me, this podcast is so important, because I love speaking to people who have been through those awful, dark, challenging moments, but found strength despite that and come out stronger and achieved your goals and aspirations.
you can. It's determination, isn't it? But I think, I was always going to be on the radio. And having left the last radio station, I'm still going to be on the radio. And I know exactly what I want to do. And my mum reminded me at the weekend that you did that when you were 14. So why can't you do it now? And I think I can, and I am, and I will. I'm not going to fail at that. I haven't got them nicking my clothes anymore either. So this is a much more positive thing. Yeah, I think you just need to have that mindset of forwardness.
Yeah. And your podcast, is that about, are you using it as a platform to campaign? Are you an activist, or is it more therapy for you? I don't think it's either of those things. I think it has turned into therapy. Originally, it was, I just know that these stories don't get told. There might be a story that pops up somewhere about something, but there isn't a collection of these stories, and they are extreme. We have people who hid their sexuality because of their Christianity, for example, because of the time when they were born, or they were discovering themselves. There's this heartbreaking story with Richard, who's actually my neighbour. And we did the pilot together because like I say, I've had this idea for years, and I knew Richard's story. And he tells a story about how he fell in love at university in the 60s. And he had to wear the person he fell in love with was an American man, and had to wave him off on a ship from Southampton and never saw him again. And he says that it was the biggest bereavement in his life because gay men get married. He then got married. To a woman.
Twice. And he doesn't regret that because he's got children, grandchildren. But he mourns that. And it's a remarkable episode because he also talks about how he found out about various things in his life. It's really great. But
I've listened. It is. I would highly
That was the pilot. That's what got it commissioned.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's... and also his voice telling the story is wonderful, isn't it? It was a really emotional thing.
Yeah, well, I was actually listening whilst I was getting a pedicure.
Oh, lovely.
And I was crying.
Oh, no.
So this woman's painting my toes and there's like tears coming down my face. I was like, oh, this is a bit embarrassing.
Keep looking down at the feet. Don't look up here. Yeah, well, I'm surprised how many of these episodes people have been really moved by them. Yeah, the trans stories are quite remarkable because I feel like we're living in quite, I talked about, I didn't want to talk about being gay. Well, now being trans is such, it's been turned into a sort of weaponized, toxic, you can't even have a conversation about it. And if you listen to those 2 episodes, it really gives you some clarity about what it is like to be trans. And the Isabel episode that you mentioned, when the only way that she could be happy through her wife's dementia was to be Isabel, and her wife gave permission for her to be Isabel. And it's complicated, but it's such a story.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
Wrong body for 80 years.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No.
You get up in the morning, you put the clothes on because those are the clothes that suit your image, the way you are, the way you present.
But we've talked about what it does to you to keep a secret inside for so long as well. You know, it tears you apart from inside, doesn't it?
Gail, whose episode is about her Christianity, she talks about how she was ready to come out to her family despite being told by her church she'd been disowned by her church. And then she was at the top of a cliff on the Isle of Man and thought, I don't have to come out if I do this. And, you know, thank God that she didn't. And she came down, and she's now married to this wonderful woman called Tina, and we've got her wedding photos on the video that we posted this week. And I mean, I was crying looking at those because, you know, and I'll just mention one more quickly. There's a guy called Norman who's a remarkable man. I had such a great chat with him. He's bisexual, and he, in the 1960s, maybe 70s, went to his GP with his parents and said that he thought he was a girl. His GP then contacts a psychologist. He gets admitted into hospital, admitted for a month, and he had electroconvulsive therapy. So he had his brain reprogrammed because of this feeling that he had. Shocked. He was shocked. That hospital's still there. He still lives near it, and he came out thinking, I've just got to get on with my life, and had to go back in because he still couldn't. So then he had aversion therapy where they teach you how to walk like a man. Wow. And
that was only as recent as the 60s, 70s.
Do you know what I mean? And that was on the NHS.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing that came out of that story is very quick to get into the NHS hospital in those days. Very quick.
No waiting list back
straight
then.
away, you're in, being electrocuted. But that was on the NHS. And there was a story that about 2,000 men had that treatment in the UK. Well, I've spoken to 2 of them. And so I think there were more than 2,000. Yeah. And I think that and Section 28, which was a piece of legislation brought in by Margaret Thatcher, which prevented promotion of homosexuality in schools. So in sex ed, when I was at school, you couldn't be talked to about being gay. There was no reference to it because of Section 28. Now, I think that, which was in place for many, many years, I think that has caused so many mental health problems because we weren't allowed to talk about something that we didn't know about.
Yeah. I think things are getting better.
Oh, they are, definitely. But people in their 40s, I think, have been through varying levels of what I went through and what the people on the podcast went through.
Yeah, 100%. And just, you know, I hope for our children, they won't have to go through.
Isn't it wonderful? Yeah. I'll tell you one story because I'm aware that I'm babbling on, but I warn you now that I can't tell this without crying, so I'm not going to look at you. So clench, okay? Clench. I now go to Pride. I never used to go to Pride, but I go. And near me, Isle of Wight Pride is such a lovely Pride. It's a community event. It's really nice. And they have the parade through the town. And I went, and I was stood on the side, I was watching, and they're all coming down. And then a troop of scouts came on the parade. That in itself is, they're teenagers. This is great. At the front of the troop of scouts, I'm going, there's a boy dressed in glitter, had a feather boa. It was very hot. I don't know how he got away with it. Feather boa, and he's throwing a baton in the air, and he's wearing, and he's covered in pride colours. All of the other scouts are there for him.
Oh.
And that's like, I was a wreck because no one was there for me when I was his age. And isn't it amazing that these scouts were just there because it's kind of fun to get involved, isn't it? Not because it's a gay thing.
Yeah. They just wanted to support their mates.
Just want to support them. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. I could talk to you all day, but I'm going to take us to the final question, which I ask all of my guests. If you could go back in time when things were at their toughest, what do you wish you could tell yourself that you now know?
You will get a chart show and you will get on the radio. I think something I'm really proud of is determination. And Richard, just keep your head down, be determined. I have never followed a crowd. I have always been individual. And that's the right thing to do. Keep going.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for being so honest. I really do direct our guests towards your podcast. This was always me. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've just loved chatting to you today. So thank you, Rich.
Oh, no, thank you so much.